Hello, this is Sculpt January, and this is number 6, where I'm making a monster. So I started with a cube and then just went straight into the Dyn Topo settings and started using the hook brush tool and shaping things around. I thought I'd go for a sort of cute dragon-y type thing. Keeping the detail low, and then I'm using the crease brush and the pinch brush. Took me a long time again. I keep saying I'm going to spend less time on them, and then I end up spending more time than I did the last one. So again, I don't know quite how long I'm going to keep this up for. I made a slight mistake here. I was trying to push the model around with the grab brush or the snake hook brush, and I didn't realise I had front faces only turned on, and I couldn't work out what was going wrong with the brush. So it took me quite a while to figure that one out. That often happens with Blender. You suddenly press something by accident and then you're caught in some weird loop and you don't know what you pressed. You eventually figure it out, but it can set you back a little bit in time. I think it's really important to get the base mesh right before you start adding any detail. So again, I'm still on quite a low detail. I've got constant detail on with my Dyn Topo. I think it's about 30 at the moment, but I think it does depend on Blender units and things. I spent a lot of time getting that shape right, and instead of using the snake hook tool for the hand, I made a quick one out of the skin modifier, which was much faster actually. Bit more precise. I think I might use that a bit more often. I mirrored it and then tried to boolean it, but it didn't work for some strange reason. So I grabbed the Sculpt tool add-on from online and used that. And for some reason that worked. It's always a good idea to save these things before you do anything like Boolean operations and so forth. I didn't worry too much that the mesh wasn't joining up correctly. That often happens with the skin modifier when you use it to create meshes. I just brought down the settings of the Dyn Topo, sculpted over it, and it made new topology. So at this point, I needed to go to more detail. So I slowly built it up, and you can see I'm zooming into the model more and getting a bit more precise modeling detail now. I'm still getting used to the Wacom Mobile Studio Pro, getting used to the shortcut buttons, and I've got a small keyboard that goes with it, so I find it much easier than using the buttons on the side. But it kind of both speeds up and slows down my workflow in other ways, whilst I'm still getting used to it. I'm getting closer to a mesh that I'm happy with now, and then I'll start doing the details. I always find things like claws and toes a bit tough. This was when I actually figured out that I was using the front faces only, and then I was able to pull out the horns much easier. So it took me that long to find that out. And it's actually quite tricky. I probably should have used separate meshes and then place them around the model. I could have then used the Sculpt add-on to boolean them in. Sometimes it's not even necessary to do that, and it can be helpful to have separate models for texturing and things. I think it took me so long because I wasn't happy with the shape for a long time, and I kept working on it and then pausing for a bit and coming back to it. It often happens with models, especially with sculpting, that you have to keep working on it until you're happy. I spent a lot of the day on and off working on this model, so I didn't really have much time for texturing in the end. I would have liked to have experimented more with painting. Starting to have a bit of fun with the blobs and spots and things like that he has. So I was reasonably pleased with it at this point, but I'd left myself so little time to do the texturing that I probably did the model a bit of a disservice, really. I did create a small rig for it. It was a bit more complicated than I would have liked, but the model's sort of a bit awkward, really. So I created a rig, mirrored it across, and then posed the model. I should have really baked the textures before posing the model, because I'm only posing a low poly mesh instead of both the high poly and the low poly. Looking back at it, I could have linked the high poly up to the armature as well, but I'm not sure how processor intensive that might have been, and it might have caused lots of lag. And then at least the ambient occlusion bake would have been in the right places, because the bake does depend on where bits of the mesh are hitting each other at times. But it is quite nice to pose your models, even if it's very subtle. It just takes away that mirror, which looks a bit too uniform. Now when I'm wrapping, I'm being quite lazy. I'm just doing a quick UV unwrap. I'm putting it down to quite a small angle, but actually that's no good for painting. And I was thinking about painting this, but then I realised there were seams just all over the place and it became unmanageable. I'd have to spend a bit more time if I wanted to do that. But here I am baking out the textures. Ambient occlusion, I did a cavity one as well, and of course the normals. Obviously getting my high poly mesh and then duplicating it, decimating it, and then unwrapping it. And then using all those textures on the low poly model. Again, I will do a tutorial on that. I have got a few on my channel, but there's probably more I can say about it, and it helps sometimes to look at a couple of tutorials on those things when someone's doing different models. So I'm happy to do that again. You can see the ambient occlusion there and the cavities. I was mixing them up in different ways just for a bit of fun, but I'm not really happy with the way the textures turned out. I think they could have been a bit better. Anyway, here's the final result. Thanks for watching, and like I say, I'm not sure how many of these I'll do, but do go along to Sculpt January on the Facebook group, get involved, join in. You do learn a lot. I'll see you there.